Takeru is Naruto because he's basic.
Ooh.
Hikari is Black Clover because she's basic and worse.
Welcome to Podages, your critically nostalgic analytical tour for Digimon anime. I'm your host, Jeff Ruberg, and this week we are discussing Digimon Adventure 2020, Episode 7, That Boy is Kido. And my guest this week is a writer for Anime News Network, 1/4 of the This Week in Anime column, and known on Annie Twitter as Lost Thief. Thanks for coming on the show, Nick.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So before I grill Nick on his Digimon backstory, I just wanted to mention that I created a quick survey to see how people feel about the structure of these weekly recap podcasts, since it's still kind of a new structure, new format. I'll have a link to the survey in the show notes and on podages.com, so I really appreciate if you take a minute to fill it out. So back to grilling Nick. Okay, so what is your Digimon backstory? How'd you get into Digimon? Like, what parts of the franchise were you familiar with, and which seasons of the anime have you seen?
I got into the franchise the way pretty much everyone did. I saw the anime when it was first airing on television. I fell in love with it, and I followed up through Frontier. I sort of consider myself a lapsed Catholic of Digimon, because until Tri came out, I didn't really touch the franchise. And it's for entirely petty reasons. I was really angry that in Data Squad, the main character had his own Agumon, and so I just never wanted to touch it.
So did you, when you say through Frontier, did you finish Frontier, or did you quit midway through Frontier?
I made it all the way through Frontier. Those 4 seasons, I've seen everything through. I've seen half of Tri. I fell off after that 3rd one because the 4th one I was just never encouraged to see.
So that's an interesting point to fall off. Did you enjoy the 3rd one, but just hadn't heard positive things about the 4th one? Or you didn't even enjoy the 3rd one that much?
I enjoyed the 3rd one. It was just, with that release schedule, there was always months in between, and
yeah,
it always seemed to come out when I was busy, so I would fall behind on it, and then everything I'd heard about the 4th through the last Tri movies just didn't interest me.
Yeah, that 3rd one was such a turning point, because I was like, oh man, this is like a new height. Like, I can't wait to see what the second half of this series has. And then 4th one was so disappointing that it was like, oh no.
That was sort of how it felt for me. I was like, oh, I heard that's a disappointment. Well, I'm happy with just leaving it where the 3rd left off. Or I can imagine my own ending.
I mean, I think it's better to go into it these days and not have high expectations. It's if you've heard it's not amazing, and then you can appreciate the things that it tries to do ambitiously without expecting the pictures to move, or the writing to make sense, or maybe being a little too harsh, but
that was the other thing, is just those movies didn't look good. It was the C team at Toei, and I'm like, so I'm very glad Adventure 2020 doesn't have that problem so far.
Yeah. All right. So now on to a quick lightning round. What's your favorite season?
Tamers.
Okay. Favorite Digimon?
If I had to say, I would go with Patamon. I really like his design, even as a kid, and that's the one Digimon I would want to have as a pet.
Oh, I'm sure you've been happy with his reboot that does not have Patamon so far.
I like his design. I don't care for his character, so he's fine. I see him in the OP. I see him in the OP every week. That's good.
Favorite villain?
I think my favorite one is the Digimon Emperor. During that whole arc is just really interesting.
Both of the last 2 guests in a row have mentioned Edamon, and I was like, no, I'm gonna flip a table. Come on, gotta give Ken his due.
Oh yeah, he's the most interesting villain because he's the only human one.
It's a shame how that's not a trope that they've pulled more. But I guess if they did, then it wouldn't have as much power as it did.
Yeah.
Favorite adventure character?
Well, Ken was my favorite villain, but my favorite character was definitely Joe. I was a scaredy cat as a kid, so I always gravitated towards the kind of characters who would be like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't know about this, guys. I was definitely Arnold on the Magic School Bus.
Yeah, that. Now that you draw a through line to Arnold, I was totally Arnold, down to the red hair. And I vividly remember, personality-wise, I was 100% Arnold. I vividly remember, though, thinking what's his name, Ralph?
Ralphie, yeah.
Ralphie, yeah. I was like, I'm definitely Arnold, but I think of myself as Ralphie. That's, that's That's who I wanted to be. That's who I wished I could be.
Yeah, and well, I actually sort of credit Digimon for helping me not be a scaredy cat, because specifically Tamers, which gets really creepy at points, specifically with Jerry and her whole character, that scared the bejesus out of me as a kid. But Jerry was my favorite character in Tamers, so I didn't want to turn it off, and I think that sort of turned me into enjoying like horror imagery as an adult.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Joe, I just as someone who I look back on and realize I've always been Joe, I think I kind of like saw him and was like, this is the ugly sides of myself, and I didn't want to acknowledge it. Like, especially it'll come up in this episode, but it was like the way Joe's acting, I'm like internally, I'm like, no, Joe, don't do this. This is you have to act better to like get people to like you. Like they're not gonna like you if you act like this. I guess there was too many internal demons for me.
Yeah, I totally get what you're talking about. That's how I was with certain characters that you're like looking back on, you can see yourself in them because you've moved past that, but in the moment you're like, no, no.
All right, so what's your hottest Digimon take?
I like the 02 epilogue.
Ooh, feisty.
I don't think it's amazing, but I like it, and it's fine. And if Try had built into that, I would have been fine with it.
Well, I guess you technically don't know how Try ended. Maybe maybe it perfectly set that up and, drew a perfect through line and everything was emotionally satisfying and tied into the plot mechanics of Try itself and didn't leave any huge open holes. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And my Twitter followers just never told me.
All right, let's dive into Digimon Adventure 2020, Episode 7. That boy is Joe Kido, aka Say It Ain't Joe, aka Ikakuman's Harpoon Torpedo Cram School, aka Try Chapter 2, but on a beach. So, just to explain, our spoiler policy for this episode is that we are going to talk about everything in the Crunchyroll episode, including the next episode title and preview, but we're probably not going to mention that until towards the end of the show. And we're not going to mention anything outside of that, including the summary or titles for things past next episode. Yeah, so what were your like quick impressions of this episode?
I liked it. It's following the same basic formula the last three have, where we introduce the kid, their Digimon, and then they get their Digivolution. But I think it was overall a little bit more impactful because there's a little more conflict with Joe's character compared to the others.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like the previous episodes have been like a trend that has worried me, that like it seemed like the reboot is polishing the characters too much to the point where they don't have their rough edges and their flaws. And I was trying not to judge too quickly because it's like this is still early. It's totally a valid structure for the season to introduce them without any flaws and then slowly show us more sides and show us their flaws. But this episode off the bat, Joe is just full of flaws right from the beginning. He's just an anxious mess.
Oh yeah, he's a nervous wreck.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. I guess I'm hopeful that what that means is that like, okay, this is like the start of a trend that now we're going to explore other insecurities of the other characters more. What it could be is that it's like, oh, the other ones are flawless. Joe is the one that has insecurities and anxieties, but like everyone else is flawless. Maybe I'm being too hopeful and too optimistic, but I don't think that's where it's going. But
I don't think so either. My hope is that now that we've done the character introductions and we've gotten them all together, we can start to explore that more with focus episodes that don't have to share time with introducing the characters and everything like that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That was one strength that the original show definitely had, was that everyone's just there immediately, so you can start giving them focus episodes without telling us their names and then what their deal is.
I just realized I skipped over one of the important questions, is like before episode 7, episodes 1 to 6, what's your general thoughts of the reboot so far?
I'm enjoying it. What I wanted out of the reboot was two things. I wanted it to be its own thing, where it isn't trying to either homage or distance itself too much from the original, and it just tells its own story in its own way with its own introduction or its own interpretation of these characters. And I think it's mostly doing that pretty well. The other thing I wanted was, I didn't want it to try really hard to update the tech. I didn't want like the Digimon or the Digivices to be a phone app that you can download right now. Kids, you can download it at home and have your very own Agumon for $9.99. I do wish that they had updated Matt to where he's always wearing AirPods.
Does Matt give you an AirPods vibe?
I feel like he would always he was gonna have some moody rock music playing in one ear. That's just who he is in those first three episodes. Like they're about to make Omega Mon, and he just has to pull out one of his earpods. Like, what'd you say?
Could you imagine if he, instead of having a harmonica, had AirPods and was just, I don't
Oh,
even know, just like humming into his AirPods? Like,
that would take away a little bit. Like, my dad gave me these AirPods.
have you seen any of Atmon?
I have not. I just never caught up to it because it was years before it was actually available legally, and I just
Hmm.
never made time for it.
I mean, it's hard for me to judge because I did not, I watched it in Japanese without subtitles because it was like possible to stream it without subtitles while it was airing just for 1 week. And I hurriedly watched along. So I maybe got like 40% of understanding the show. So I do want to go back and actually watch it for real and understand it. But I think it's an interest, like what you're saying about like updating technology. Like it, in some ways, it's kind of cringe in how it is like treats apps and technology and just like has such a like naive and childish understanding of how technology works.
Hmm.
And also, there's some ways where it's like, oh yeah, there are the whole premise is these apps on their phones, and yet they have like their, I forget what they call them, but the oh my god, app launcher, I think is what they call them. People are gonna be really mad at me. But anyway, like the equivalent of the Digivices in that season are so not smartphone like. They're so like big and flashy and like toy like, and they also have like wrists. They're not watches, but they're like a wrist thing they put these chips into, and it's like it's almost like they updated it for like modern technology, but then like the toys they were trying to sell were so shoehorned in that it was like this is not modern technology anymore. This is some weird uncanny valley.
Okay, so that gave me an idea. Let me run this past you. What if they update the Digivices in Adventure and they're smartwatches now?
Oh no.
Like everybody's just got an Apple Watch.
Oh yeah, your Apple Watch glows with your crest, and like as I'm thinking about that, I'm like, I could see if this were like a Mamoru Hosoda movie where it's like, they have some kind of like integrated technology that like, like in Summer Wars where like they're using their DS to connect to the internet and like basically have Digimon battles with their Nintendo DS. Like that was great. So like if it had someone like Hosoda in charge, then that could work. But with anyone else, ooh.
Yeah, only issue is when like the Crest of Sincerity gets delisted and it's like, oh great. Like how are we gonna digivolve now? Let me update the user license agreement.
Yeah, and like their crest of reliability will get like delisted from the App Store because it has too much religious iconography. Anyway, let's dive into the recap for this episode. We start off with Taichi, Sora, and Mimi drinking tea. I think you were the first one I saw to make this joke that the what do they call it, golden tippy?
Mm-hmm.
That I also had no idea what it was aside from My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
Thank you, My Hero Academia, for teaching us.
You've taught me three things, my hero.
What are the other two things?
um I don't know. I was making a joke,
Oh,
Jeff.
I thought you like had that set up.
No, I'm not that good.
Friendship, effort, and golden tip tea. That's those are the lessons in My Hero Academia. Um, this scene I thought was cute and nice, and I feel like it kind of like and so okay. Let me explain some more context there. So they're drinking their tea, and then Soren's like, "Wait, should we be relaxing?" And they're like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't be. Where's the sea? Oh, it's right over there." That was a little bit awkward. But then Bergermon flies off with Taichi and Sora, and Mimi just, because like they can't fit everyone on Bergermon, Mimi stays on the beach and stays in her little chair with the leaf covering it. I thought this was an interesting way of like toning down Mimi's quote unquote spoiled like princess personality and kind of like showing instead of telling it,
Yeah.
but in a very like less abrasive way. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, she's gonna be the one in the nicer chair, and she's gonna like be the one with the tea and like stuff, but like she's not gonna be like, subjects get me my tea.
Yeah, she's not a brat, but she enjoys the finer things in life.
Yeah.
And in this case, since they're in the middle of nowhere, the finer things are shade and servitude.
Yeah, she like we don't see her bossing around Palmon, but clearly Palmon's still acting like her butler. So it's hopefully it's more like a butler and less like a slavery apologia.
I mean, this is a modern isekai.
Yeah, that's how you update it for a modern isekai is make the slavery themes more explicit. Oh god.
Uh,
This is your problematic fave, Kanichi Joji. I mean,
you're making me sad. Digimon's supposed to be my escape from all this.
we realized that it's that meme with the astronaut and the gun and it's been this way all along. Like Digimon has always been a slavery isekai.
No, no.
Yeah, so Bergemon's flying over with Taichi and Sora, and well, actually, this whole premise that they're like, okay, we need to find this continent. First, let's find the water, and let's just head straight out from wherever the first water we find is. I'm like, that's not how navigation works. Like, you're just going in a random direction. Like,
They are 10-year-olds, okay? The bigger question, which we'll talk about later, is the particular conflict of this episode seems really easy to solve, because as they're flying out, they run into Gessamon, who's you know out in a whirlpool protecting the strait or whatever, and it's like, couldn't they just like go 100 feet down the beach?
it- huh?
Couldn't Bergermon fly higher?
I can understand that maybe not flying higher, but like just go a little bit left. Yeah. Like also like they're referring to like it's a strait. Is that how you refer to an open ocean? That doesn't seem right.
Well, strait is it's a body of water that is pretty large, but it's definitely not an ocean. So maybe the kids are just confused about how big it is, because you have the Bering Strait in Alaska.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, a strait is a naturally formed, narrow, navigable waterway that connects two larger bodies of water. And nothing in this episode communicated that was a narrow thing connecting two things of water. It just looked like the open ocean.
I don't know. Tai Chi failed geography, maybe.
So they get attacked by Gesamon. They fall in the water. Gomon saves them. He's like, "Oh, I have a partner," and they're like, "Whoa!" Gomon's still the best in this introduction. It was great to see him on screen.
That's something that's interesting to me, is that in this one, this is the first time I think we've gotten like real clarification that these Digimon are aware that they're like the quote unquote chosen ones, and that they have chosen partners.
Yeah, I yeah, I'm very confused about the mechanics of like how they've like whether they've known this their whole life, like how they've been waiting and like why or like how they've been staged to like find the kids as soon as they appear and everything. Like
Yeah.
it was simple enough in the original show that it's like, okay, all these Digimon are in one group. Like even like later in the end, towards the end of the show, they kind of like quote unquote explained how they got there and everything. But it was simple enough that you could kind of connect the dots and didn't leave any questions. And this has raised a lot of questions.
Yeah, because it's like in this one, it's not just they were sent there to help the kids by Jedi. It's they are the reincarnations of these mythical heroes from 1,000 years ago, and it's like, what? Um, okay, that's cool. How do any of them feel about that?
Yeah, now that you mention it, like it would be interesting. I mean, I guess they don't seem to retain those memories of that past life, but like it, especially considering their past life, they were able to achieve that power without human intervention. It would be interesting if some of them, or at least one of them, was like, I don't want a partner. Like I can fight as myself as a Digimon. Like I don't need a partner. That sounds familiar. I think there must be some other Digimon partner that has had that narrative arc, and I just can't put a finger on it.
I think it's your boy Impmon.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, he got bad. He got kids who were too young.
Well, yeah, but like that was his whole thing, is that I don't need a partner, I don't need a kid to become a mega evolution, and he didn't, and then everything went to hell.
Yep. Oh, turns out you can achieve power if you don't care about destroying everyone in your life.
But if you do care about people, you get some cool wings.
Yeah. um, So like while this is happening, while they're doing these shenanigans in the ocean slash strait, we cut to Hikari watching the news back in Hikari and Taichi's apartment. And so I wrote down all the different like the prefectures and then cities they mentioned, just because the confusing thing about the scene is that Hikari's watching TV, her mom is cooking, their apartment is fully lit up, full electricity. The news mentions that there's been a lot of power outages, and then the power cuts out. The mom mentions that the microwave went out, which is a weird thing to mention when also the lights did too, but whatever. And then Akari, we still see her watching TV. We don't see the TV continue to move, but the TV screen's still on. So either that's like a glaring animation error, or she's doing some kind of magical light powers.
Or Hikari is Poltergeist.
Yeah. So I wrote down like the different prefectures and cities I mentioned just to like clarify that they're describing the prefectures that are around Tokyo, and when they say the power has been out since 7 a.m., so earlier in the day, in the three cities they mention are cities that are like really close to Tokyo, like Kawaguchi, Saitamashi, and Urayasushi is where Tokyo Disneyland is. So there's all things that are like right on the edge of Tokyo, but they don't mention the city that they're in, which is Kawasaki. They do mention the prefecture, but not the city. So like the news did not say their power had been out. I thought they were saying that like the power had been out since 7 a.m. And once Hikari like that like maybe the power had only been on because Hikari had been keeping it on, and then when she heard that it had been out, then she was like, oh, because I don't need to do this. But no, they didn't mention that their city was out, so I was just spinning wild conspiracy theories for no reason.
Well, thank you for doing that because I have no idea where anything is in Tokyo. So I'm just like, yeah, that sounds like places that exist.
Saitama, that's the name of a One Punch Man character. Sure, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a real thing. So Kosho is also watching the news in his little nether space. It's a little funny that he's just been flying for like 3 episodes straight, and
yeah. Can we like get this kid a portal or something? He's
it,
he's been hanging out in the negative space for so long.
yeah, I remember early on I was like, oh, it seems like they're doing this funny gag where each episode he has a different kind of bench that he's can sit on. It's like when it was in Waymon, it was absurd because it's like he's on like an upside down floating little block. But then it's like, okay, no, 3 episodes he's just on the same bench for 3 episodes straight. Like,
I feel like he's being antisocial here. Like he could have gotten to the digital world by now, right?
yeah, he's just choosing not to. He's just like he has a party that he got an invitation for, and he's like, I don't really want to go. So like,
He's like trying to come up with an excuse to text Ty later. It's like, sorry, I had to take my dog to the vet.
there's a quote from a recent episode of Drag Race where they're enacting a skit of a family barbecue. Anyway, Drag Race is a weird thing to explain to people who aren't familiar with the intricacies of it. But the quote that one of the queens comes in with is, "Sorry, I'm late. I didn't want to come," which is kosher. So the kids Gomon introduces them to his child, and whoa, surprise, it's Joe. We all knew this, but they see that Joe's studying, which that was a surprise. Like I don't think we expected them to jump right to his nervous wreck try chapter 2 personality in episode 1, but it's interesting.
It makes sense to me in a way. They're sort of consolidating what these characters became across like 10 years of the franchise. And it makes sense to sort of consolidate so that he's nervous and anxious, but he has a factor to him that is pushing him to be that way.
Yeah, when I thought about it some more, I realized that like in the original show, Joe had before they got isekai'd, he had a role, a responsibility, which was he was the leader of the camp group, and he was supposed to keep them in line. He was their senpai, like he was the one in charge. And then they got transported to the isekai, and it's basically like it's natural for him to keep up that role. Like that's what he was doing, and he's gonna keep it up. And like with that kind of a task, it makes sense that he kept it together and wanted to like not be the leader, but be the person who's like the parent, I guess, and or the adult. And in this scenario, instead, he didn't have like I think it's very analogous that it's like he is just once he's been isekai'd, he's trying to resume the role and the responsibility he was given before that. Like in the original show, that was to keep the group protected, but now it's he's studying for his entrance exams, or like is he going into
Yeah, he's sixth grade, so he's going to go into Japanese middle school next year.
right. Middle school is 7, 8, 9. High school is 10, 11, 12. Right.
Which that always freaked me out. Like you have to take entrance exams to go to middle school.
Yeah, like ugh.
Like that's crazy. You're 12.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't quite qualify for Joe and like medical school, but it always weirded me out that it's like you have to study for middle school entrance exams, high school entrance exams, college entrance exams, and then once you're in college, like no one cares. It's all easy. And it's like what? That shouldn't the point of college be that it's hard? And apparently it's the opposite.
Nope, it's all a lie. It's all a scam.
Yeah, it's all a just to have a qualification on your resume.
Mm-hmm.
Which oof. Yeah, so I think it's cool to have Joe. I've seen I think it was Christopher Ferris who does the Anime News Network reviews of these Adventure 2020 episodes. He mentioned on Twitter that like as soon as he saw Joe being a nervous wreck with studying, that it's like kind of like the bit of our war game where he is studying instead of participating in the movie is kind of like consumed Joe's entire personality now in the franchise. And I think that's a fair read and kind of frustrating. But yeah, like I was saying, I think it's natural that like with the scenario that's been set up, that's how he would react. Like I think what's interesting about Joe and like the way he factors into his crest is that he's very good about being responsible. But like in the original show, the point where I know his crest is reliability, not responsibility, but I kind of think of it more as like it's more like a responsibility kind of reliability. But anyway, he he doesn't really activate his crest until he has conflicting responsibilities and has to make the choice about which is the the more important responsibility. Like he's always been good about having one responsibility and dedicating himself to that. But once it's like, okay, do I protect TK or do I like, I forget exactly what it is in the original episode where he activates his crest, but it's like, at least in Try and stuff after that, it's like, okay, he has, does he do the test or does he help save the world with the kids? And it's like, okay, only once he learns to juggle with different responsibilities does he actually come into his own. And it feels like this is like doing that from the beginning, which he didn't really have to deal with in the original show in the beginning.
Yeah, it's sort of an evolution from doing what's expected of him as being responsible to doing what is important to him and to the larger conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So he sort of has to shift his priorities and understand that whatever he's got going on in his head with his regular life, there are more important things, and he has an important role to play in that.
Yeah, it's a little. It always felt a little bit unfair to me that like he's the most like grounded in Japanese society and expectations and all this stuff, and it's like he has all these things piled on him that other characters don't have to deal with. Like, I mean, I guess they all have different kinds of expectations on them and stuff, but it's like I often just feel like Joe just has to deal with more. He just has it harder in life.
He gets it more because he is a little older. The rest of the kids
Yeah,
are 9 or 10, so they're still sort of being sheltered from that. But he is specifically studying to move up into a more into a phase of life where there's more expected of him, and he has to practice more autonomy.
yeah. I don't know. When I was 11, I was just studying Yu-Gi-Oh cards, so.
Oh, same. I was not prepared for anything at all, but I also didn't have to take an exam to go into junior high.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, yeah, I can't really speak to what it's like to be a kid of Joe's age in Japanese society, but like, I wonder how much his parents are actually pressuring him to like get into the best middle school, and how much it's just like his personality is the type to like take on all those responsibilities and anxieties himself and be like, this is what they expect of me, so I must live up to it. And it's like maybe no one even told him that. So anyway, they basically tell Joe about how they have to save Tokyo, and the part that I find weird about this is that Joe denies the story and he's like, there's no way that's true. And it seemed like last episode, Mimi talking about how she slept through the info dump from the big holy bird Digimon, that it seemed like they probably all got that same info dump simulcast to their devices. And I'm not sure how Joe did not.
I get the impression Joe doesn't logically think it's wrong. It's made up. I think he wants.
He's just in denial.
Yeah, he's like trying to ignore it. It's like I've got enough on my plate. I don't need to be a partner to a destined hero right now.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I'm just hitting puberty. I'm getting a growth spurt. Girls are weird.
He probably like heard the info dump on his Digivice and was like, "Oh, this is just spam. Like, this is clearly some like solicitation. I'm not going to donate money to a Nigerian prince." Like,
Oh yeah, like this is trying to get me to buy the paid version of this app I'm using, and I'm not doing that.
so yeah, Joe. I guess it's like what causes his break. I guess it's realizing there are no adults and they don't know their way home, and he just really needs to study. But he freaks out and tears down the whole hut.
This version of Joe is decidedly more intense. Like, because in the original he was sort of just like a spineless weenie who was like, "Oh, I don't know about this, guys," but but now he's like he's got some anger to him.
I forgot when we were talking about Try. I should have mentioned that like the best part of Try Chapter 4, which I think is the worst of the 6 movies, the best part of that movie is Joe related. So if you are ever tempted, you might just want to look up that clip of what Joe does in that movie.
Okay, well,
It's kind of related to this note.
that is the first positive influence I've gotten to watch that movie. So
After Joe freaks out, the kids decide to go on without Joe. And then there's the act break. We come back from the interstitial, and basically, like Joe's trying to talk to Gomon and notices that Gomon's left mid sentence, which felt very similar to the emotional beat in Try Chapter 2, where he like makes him ramen and then leaves and goes off to save the world without Joe.
Gomamon kind of has to be the babysitter for his partner in some ways, or
Yeah.
the life coach, and he's nice about it. But I also get the feeling that like he doesn't have a lot of patience for it.
Yeah, like he's loving of Joe, but he's also like, I'm gonna go do something now and then come and help you when I can actually like do something actionable, because this isn't actionable right now.
Yeah, like he is loving and he understands Joe, but he also recognizes that just being his friend isn't always enough to get him to clean up his act.
Yeah, yeah, that's a healthy attitude towards, because sometimes just being a, like, if you're a supportive friend that's just a complete blanket and just doesn't confront someone about issues, or like just lets them do everything as is, like, you can enable some bad behavior.
Yeah, he can't be Joe's emotional sponge, and I'm glad that he recognizes that.
Yeah. So basically, Taichi comes up with a strategy to distract Gessamon. I think they really wanted to like position Taichi as like being a smart strategist here. Like, he comes up with a strategy to distract Gessamon. He like tells Piyomon that Piyomon should rest because Bergermon got hit by Gessamon earlier in the episode, which that made sense strategically, but I think it was just an excuse because the animators didn't want to draw Bergermon again.
Yeah,
Um,
they don't like moving Bergermon much. Like poor Sora cannot catch a break with any of these reboots or continuations. She got the worst looking episode in this. She got the worst movie.
Yeah, like at least once we meet Akakamon this episode, I was like, okay, the way they are animating Akakamon felt similar to how they're animating Birdramon. Like, it seems like neither of them they want to touch too much, and it's like, okay, at least you're not the only one now.
Yeah, well, they're sort of clunky too because they're not humanoid, so it's difficult to like make their movements feel too fluid unless you really pay attention to it.
Yeah, like if they really wanted to give them some kind of lavish animation, I'm sure there are things they could do. Like, but that's fair for that not to be the focus and the prerogative of this show in particular.
Yeah, this is still a TV anime show being made in the middle of a pandemic, so there's gonna be some prioritizing of animation.
Oh yeah, but the other thing I was gonna say about Taichi and being this like quote unquote strategist is that like the strategy of distracting Gessamon only works once Gomon joins and is like, yeah, I'll be the bait. Because until that point, they don't really have any way to distract Gessamon. But thankfully Gomon appears and is like, yeah, I'll be the bait. And
Knowing Tai, his idea was probably, "I'll swim out there. I'm a good swimmer."
that, not to tie everything into Try Chapter 4, but there's some bad swimming in that movie.
Oh, I'm sure.
um, okay, I've gone back to that well too many times. Yeah, that's a side of Tai Chi that I'm surprised I've not really shown that much early on, which is his like bravado and like throwing himself into danger, which I think was one of his biggest flaws in the original series. So hopefully they'll get to that in time,
Yeah.
or get to something in time. Yeah, so Gomon lures Gessamon to the shore and then gets attacked, and then Joe jumps in to help him, and then basically like the two of them bond for a while everyone else fights. They have a heart to heart.
I do really like this heart to heart because this is basically what we got the last 3 episodes where, the partner Digimon gets hurt, the kid goes and cradles them, and then they digivolve to get stronger and protect each other. But this is like the first time it feels like there's a conflict to it because,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like Koshiro, Mimi, and Sora, they were all like sort of on board already. They were friends with their partner, and protecting them immediately just makes sense for who they are. But with Joe, it's something he has to. It's a reversal of his past actions, so it feels like there's a little more character growth here.
Yeah, like the other ones were very much just like, you are a cute thing that I like. You are in danger. I want to protect you. Whoa, power up. This was like, they had a conflict. Joe had insecurity about, like even being accepted by Gomon. Like he saw himself as inferior as a partner and was like, aren't you fed up with me? Like, and that was a really interesting angle to explore. Like it really felt like they actually reached a emotional catharsis that wasn't just, oh, it's time for Digivolution.
Yeah, it comes after Joe makes a decision and says, "I am your partner."
Right. Yeah, like I was saying before about like his ability to juggle multiple responsibilities. I feel like that was his being like, like you are one of my responsibilities. Like and this task that we're doing is one of them. And acknowledging that is, if it does seem kind of like what the reboot is doing is that their initial evolutions are a little bit tied into their crest attributes a little bit, but it's not 100% because I don't think Koshiro really displayed much knowledge when he fist bumped Tentomon.
Yeah, knowledge is always sort of a hard one to do because it's like,
Yeah.
Izzy, your partner is in danger. Quick, recite a math equation.
Oh no, take an IQ test in the middle of battle.
It's like, ace your brain training course today.
I've heard people praise the battle that happens here overall just for like having more dynamics to it than just, oh, Digimon evolves and does the attack and defeats the monster. And I'll admit that, but I don't think there's much merit in like walking through the exactly like someone gets the upper hand, knocks them into the water. Then Gomon digivolves to Kakamon. Kakamon blows him out of the water, and then they go back and forth and whatever. In the end, the three Digimon all kind of like help out, and Kakamon blows up Gessamon, and I guess Gessamon dies in the bottom of the water, and his ink just floats to the top of the surface.
that's as gory as we're gonna get for a kid show is the black ink,
Yeah.
because they can't do the Danganronpa thing where they all of the blood is pink. But yeah, I like that there was a little bit of a twist where Ikakuman's attack is a sidewinder missile instead of just a straight missile.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's a pretty perfunctory fight. It's just like, yeah, cool. We get to see this new Digimon in action. That's nice.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, alluded to before, it's kind of a little disappointing that Kakumon is, that's like basically perfunctory animation. He's just there, but that's fine.
He has like two whole animation attack animations, so that's more than the first one.
Well, yeah, and I feel like his method of attacking is very boring. It's like, oh, he leans his head forward and a like harpoon shoots out of his head, but like he's not actually doing much interesting with his body while it's happening. So
Yeah, he's more of a boat than a fighter. Which is why I think his other evolutions are cooler because they get hammers.
yeah, yeah, need to be a boat and a hammer. Yeah, I guess I should mention the evolution sequence itself. I thought was very very lackluster. At least he got one compared to Bergemon, but it was ugh.
Yeah, I get the impression that they are definitely having to prioritize certain moments as being like the big animation Sakuga
Mhm.
moments,
Yeah.
and Sora and Joe just don't get those. I'm thankful Mimi got a little bit of one, and that's nice.
Yeah, I think Togemon is such an interesting character too. I feel like in this episode, it only happened for like a brief flash. Like in general, the animation in this episode is fine. I don't think it's as bad as episode four, Sora's episode, but like it's not doesn't really have great highlights like some of the other ones. But Togemon has like a brief second where like the Togemon's face animates in an interesting way, and I think that's it. Seems like Bergemon and Ikakumon are the ones who are going to get. They don't move much, but then everyone else maybe. I guess we don't really know Kabuterimon much yet.
Well, with faces in particular, Togemon has like a very simple cartoonish one, so I
Right.
imagine that one lends itself better to like some expressive or playful animation, as opposed to Bergermon, which is just like a big open maw, and then Ikakumon, which is just like a hairball.
Right. Yeah, like Togemon's face, I guess it's not hard to animate, but I don't remember them really doing much fun with it in the original show.
Well, they couldn't do anything. It was in the original. It was like animated on 5 cents and chewing gum.
Yeah. On the note of fun things, though, I do feel like this reboot has. I guess this one had more of it. This episode had more of it than the other episodes, but like it doesn't really have fun moments or like jokes. But I guess watching Joe be a nervous wreck is the closest thing we've got to that.
It's definitely a lot more understated than the original, which was a lot. They had more like loud and goofy and cartoony stuff going on. Where here the jokes are a little more like they don't draw attention to them. Like you see Mimi hanging out under her sunshade while everyone else is doing stuff, and that's funny. Or Joe trips and falls into the water, and that's funny. But it's not like a big gag.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like Mimi's being pursued by poop slinging sludge.
I'm cool with getting rid of the poop slinging sludge, honestly. Those guys suck, and I hate them, and I hope they burn in hell.
Are we talking about Vic on the show? Ooh.
uh, but yeah, it is definitely more understated than the original as far as the humor goes, and I do kind of miss some of those jokes.
Hmm.
Part of that is just because I'm familiar with the dub, so I'm used to like
Yeah.
every third line being a pun.
Yeah, actually, there was a question about that. Maybe I can. Yeah, we're gonna get to questions in a bit, but for now, I want to pull forward this question, which came in from at Mouse in House, and they ask, "Do you feel the Saban dub has aged well? Is there merit to replicating its tone slash sense of humor with newer Digimon dubs, or should all future dubs be straight?" Yeah, I feel like there's kind of a misconception in the community about like how like the original dub of Adventure totally adds tons of humor, but like the show itself, I think it had a decent amount of like we were talking about like animation itself that like was inherently full of humor. That the show is just a little bit more toned down in that regard. But to the question about like whether they should replicate that tone and sense of humor, I don't think so. I don't think it. Not even about aging well. Like it doesn't age up with the audience very well. Like if the show is targeting both a new generation of kids and the old generation, like I don't think that kind of dub would play well with the people who've grown up.
Yeah, like I am nostalgic for those old dubs, but I think you just have to look at like the response to Saban's release of Glitter Force.
Was there a response?
The response was boo, boo, and then they made one other season, it flopped, and then they sold it to Hasbro. So I don't think that though a dub like Digimon got originally would sell well here at all. And I think that's actually a good thing because for kids entertainment there is a much broader horizon of tone and story and scope that's available now. And I
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you would need or should try and make it more quote unquote kid friendly in order to sell it to kids. For a good example of how not to do that, just look at the CG Saint Seiya series they put out last year, which is garbage.
I don't think I even realized that came out. Like I
Yeah.
remember seeing things before, and then I guess afterwards it just completely fizzled.
Oh yeah, it's they tried to turn it into a Saturday morning cartoon and it just doesn't work.
I think that the Saban, the English dub of Digimon, gets a lot of unfair hate. I was thinking about this recently in regards to some praise that the Monogatari anime series gets for like brilliant, quote unquote, brilliant writing. That when people point out what examples that is, and we're talking about brilliant writing in the original Japanese. When people point out what that brilliant writing is, they're like, "Oh man, like there's all these puns and there's like these words that double entendres, and it's like they combine these two words and it has this extra meaning of this." And it's like those are all things that the Digimon dub did, and in when we experience that in our native language, we find it cringy and like dad jokes. So I feel like on its like base level, I don't know. I think it makes sense to have that cringe reaction, but also like it's complicated.
I think it comes from the sense of like the sort of backlash that you got for the Four Kids dub of One Piece, where it took
Yeah,
stuff that was still very like lighthearted and turned it into almost a parody of itself because it just sanded off all of the edges. And Digimon didn't do that, but there's the sort of like collective memory that it must have done that.
yeah. Like even if it didn't sand off edges, it definitely changed the tone, and that's something that like yeah, I'm not really in favor of localizations changing the tone, or like I guess I always feel like unless things are egregious, changes should be minimal,
Yeah.
or like you should aim to match the tone and style and like the experience of watching it in the original.
Yeah, and I think that would work perfectly well for this one because it's like I said, there is a much broader landscape for what a kids show can be and do right now compared to in the early 2000s, and I think a more direct and faithful dub would still do great as long as the show is good.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's like I don't know if I trust the collective wisdom that even a dub like Digimon worked better for kids in general. Because like I don't think I appreciated most of those jokes as a kid. Like I think maybe it works better for the adults who are forced to watch with the kids. Maybe.
Maybe it's a little bit like all of the celebrity references in Animaniacs, where it
Yeah.
definitely goes over the head of the 10-year-old watching it. But at the same time, I can't imagine like a 30-year-old dad sitting down with his kid and being like, "Ha! They made a pun about farts."
Yeah, I think it would be like the parent would be like rolling their eyes, but then like yeah, they'd hear a Marlon Brando impression and be like, haha, that Cherrymon is Marlon Brando, huh? So just to get back to close out the recap, there's not much left there, but they defeat Gesomon, they all just ride Ikakumon to the new continent, and Joe in his moment of being like, I'm your senpai, respect me, just falls into the water, and we get our classic Joe.
Oh, Joe.
Now I want like a oh god, what was that meme that went around for like a month or like a week? The like 90s sitcom, oh, Too Many Cooks, but like the Too Many Cooks version of Joe as a like sitcom gag character.
Oh yeah, he's just every single time you see him, he's falling down a progressively larger set of stairs.
Well, we already got that with Koichi, so it didn't turn out so well for him.
Oh.
Let's get into some more listener questions. So first couple ones were about the evolution sequence, so I wanted to group them together. Karita Prime asks, so at this point, do you think it's just going to be Agumon and Gabumon to get the cool Digivolution sequence? Don't get me wrong, I like how most of them, the in-world sequences look, but it feels weird to have only one stock sequence. And Jahi Johnson asked, not a question, but like they didn't ask. They said, not a question, but it really sucks that it's looking like Agumon is the only one with an evolution sequence. I expect Gabumon to get one too, since this show's main focus is Taichi/Yamato. They still haven't even given Bergman the pared down version everyone else got. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I agree with those frustrations.
I do feel a little impatient because I'm certain they're going to do stock evolutions for everybody, but it definitely feels like Tai and Agumon are the golden boys right now, and I get that he's sort of being posed as the central character, and Matt is going to be like his moody rival. But I would like to see the other Digimon get some love.
Yeah, there are a lot of signs pointing towards Taichi being like the primary focus, and I think it's like a certain number of them are acceptable. Like, okay, he's the primary focus of the opening. Okay, that's fair. The Greymon gets all the flash animation. Okay, that's fair. Greymon gets the only like elaborate evolution sequence. Okay, that's fair. But like all of them together is like exhausting. But each one of them on their own is like not that big of a deal.
Like, I'm sure we will get more like we'll get a Togemon and a Kakumon and Bergemon version of what Greymon already has, but it is kind of annoying having to wait so long for it.
I don't have your level of confidence, but
I know that they're going to have to fill time in an episode some point, and Agumon just won't be around, so they'll have to.
mm.
It's like one day they're going to put Koshiro and Mimi on an island somewhere for an episode, and they're going to have to digivolve, and Agumon won't be able to just fly in from the sky.
Yeah, and I feel like the aspects of the evolution sequence that feel like expensive flashy animation aren't really the parts that like they could take the opening part that seems more like digital effects and less hand-drawn animation and then apply what they've already done, like the sequences we have of the like morphing bodies after that, and then it would feel more on par with a Agumon sequence.
Yeah, the impression I get is that Agumon's evolution sequence is done by a single key animator,
Mm-hmm.
and my hope is that it's just a matter of prioritizing that particular animator's time so that we can get like a matching set eventually.
Yeah, yeah. It does seem like if that's the problem, then like you could get multiple animators to be doing this. Like this isn't an unsolvable problem.
Well, the way production sometimes works is you will have like a dedicated animator or team of animators who work on a particular aspect of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So like it may be that that's how they planned it because Toei likes to do that where a single animator will cover all of the different transformation sequences in a given Precure season.
Mm.
So maybe that's what they're doing here, but then maybe Toei is just a mess like always.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how Digimon stacks up to other series in terms of like the sheer number of transformation sequences, because it does seem like if there are 8 primary characters and each of them has champion, ultimate, and mega evolutions, that's what 24 transformation sequences potentially. That seems a lot higher than I would expect of a like full season of Precure. But I don't know the structure of Precure.
It depends. There are usually at least six uh, distinct ones, and then they'll get like upgraded versions later on in the season. So they're usually at least 12, but it depends on the season.
And are they like the upgrades? Are they like entirely completely new sequences, or like they get extra little bows and accessories?
It depends on the season. Some of them are like totally new, and some of them are just like a battleizer in Power Rangers.
Hmm.
So it's like I got a new wand or makeup kit or something. I don't know. I don't have the patience to watch that much Precure to tell you for sure.
So Eric G. Lugo asked, "What translated move name in the sub is the funniest, and why is it Prickly Bang Bang?"
That is pretty good. I can't stop singing the song whenever it happens.
The song?
Yeah, because in the Japanese, it's supposed to sound like chitty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang.
I'm showing my ignorance here. What is that?
Oh, you've never heard? Sorry, I forget. Not everyone has watched terrible live action Disney movies like me, but there's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It's a like really old 1960s musical Disney movie,
Oh,
and about a flying car. And they have a song. They have a song that goes Chitty Chitty Bang
I learn something every day.
Bang. But yeah, I think that is the funniest one.
Um, I had no comments on this, but I was legally obligated to read my boyfriend's comment, so I had to read it. Um, moving on, at Lazy Artist said, do y'all think Joe's prioritization of studying over Digidestined responsibilities works as well in the show as it did in Try? I don't recall this aspect of Joe's personality being so prominent this early on in the original Adventure timeline. I think I kind of addressed this earlier. That like I think it makes sense given the scenario that he was in before the isekaiization. He's trying to make like an Alicization, but for isekai.
Before he got isekaitis.
Yeah.
But I like it. Makes sense for this version and interpretation of Joe, but I do hope that it is seeding for more stuff for a larger conflict with Joe and potentially his family later on.
Mm. Yeah, and the one aspect that worries me is that like if this is how he's introduced now, I what I'm worried about is that like is it if he follows the same trajectory as the original adventure, it would be redundant if he ends up in a similar position by the end of the series. You know, like if he's starting with this conflict now, I hope that like the conflict he has later on is like you were saying with his family or something different that's not just like and now I'm in a different situation. I don't know whether to study or do Digimon things. Like at that point it would feel really redundant because even this I was like I like how it's pulling in things from recent Digimon stuff and not just the original adventure, but it's like it felt a little bit redundant to pull in something so recent from only like 5 years ago.
Hmm.
But as long as they don't do it twice in the season or whatever, it's fine. Um, CC Takado asked, "How are the Yugamis still watching TV? The power keeps going out. Battery powered TVs." Because I briefly mentioned this with my conspiracy about I don't maybe it's Hikari having magic powers, maybe it's just an animation error.
Hikari's haunted.
Yeah. Andy Lucas TT asked, "What do you think the advantages/disadvantages are of introducing both the Digidestin and Digimon Rookie and Champion in the same episode versus OG Adventure with them having little moments first and then an episode focused on them?" I guess this new format of like introducing both the Digimon and both the kid and their evolution in the same episode. It's like I think other Digimon seasons have handled it that way, and so it doesn't feel like extremely different to me. I think yeah, I guess it's just a matter of like I don't think either one is bad or wrong or right or anything like the original one with like having all these kids, it was kind of like we were slowly exposed to them. It was like they were in the background. It's like, oh, maybe that one appeals to you in the background, and then like you're excited to see them get some focus. And maybe it's a little bit contrived how like they're all there, but the camera just like focuses in on one of them for an episode and then zooms out and focuses on a different one. But that's not bad per se. That's just so I think this is like more natural how characters are like introduced one by one, and it's kind of like makes sense to focus on them while they're being introduced. But
It makes sense to me, and I'm open to it as long as we do eventually get like more character focus episodes.
yeah,
But at the same time, I do appreciate that the original kind of got the basic introductions out of the way really quick so that we could start developing the characters beyond their archetypes more,
yeah.
or more quickly anyway.
Yeah, I guess like they are introduced in that first episode as like just the archetypes, and then we kind of get some. I'm trying to remember. Do they get like some development, seeing their flaws in the early arc? I guess they do because like we see Koshiro as like we see Izzy's anxiety with like being adopted. We see like Matt being kind of anxious about like taking care of TK.
And that's another thing that the original sort of had going for it was that because they were all in a group already, you had more time to build group dynamics and let the different more disparate personalities clash. Whereas here we've technically had a group since episode 4, but it's been like Ty and his teammate, and then Izzy is on a Zoom call.
Yeah, yeah. I guess we'll have to see how it all works together once they're all there because I feel like we still have no idea how the show is even going to handle that. Digi X Mon Mon asked, "What are your thoughts on the characterization of the kids? I'm a little concerned with Ty. He's nice and brave, but I'm concerned by the lack of much else. To be honest, it's still early days, and I'm hoping to see some more interpersonal conflict now that the kids are together." Yeah, I agree. I think Taichi, like, you know, even he's just too nice. Like, he's too much of a nice boy. He's too sweet, and he hasn't. Yeah, he hasn't like shown his. Because I think even early on, like, he's kind of just like obnoxious, and like when he's like fighting Shaman and like putting himself into danger,
Yeah,
it's like, yeah,
in the original he comes on a little too strong and bites off more than he can chew. And here he's just more of like he's never really overstepped his own capabilities.
yeah. A general feeling I'm getting about this reboot is that like it's generally like making things more streamlined and marketable, and part of that is like making Taichi more of a like iconic main character. And I worry in that regard that like he might not get as much like introspection and like deep character flaws, but it's all speculation.
Yeah, like I will be disappointed if that happens, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. But I definitely get the impression that his character feels flatter than it did at this point in Adventure.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to like draw a line to like other big shonen franchises. Like I don't think Goku has much of a like inner conflict.
Oh no, Goku is like dirt simple.
Right. Like I feel like the formulas that work are like characters that just like this is them to a T. Like Luffy, Oda doesn't even want to draw Luffy's inner thoughts. Like he's like Luffy does not have inner thoughts. Like
Luffy has an icon of a piece of meat bouncing around his head like a DVD menu, and like whenever it hits the corner perfectly, he has a good idea.
oh my god, I hadn't thought about those DVD menus in forever. Dot Yawning asks, since Adventure 2020 seems to be pulling elements from later entries in the series, are there any that haven't yet been pulled in that you would like to see?
Nothing that comes to mind immediately. unless like this thing gets radically different, in which case I would kind of be interested in seeing like not necessarily a Digimon Emperor, but a human as the main antagonist.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to say too. That like I'm cautious because I think if that's an element that's played too much, then it loses its charm. But I think that is something that is exciting, and I think there is some precedent for I don't remember the timing of the serialization, but like the V Tamer 01 manga, which was running along, it, ran alongside Adventure. It ran for like enough years. It was running alongside like passed through Frontier. At some point, there are antagonists in that series that are humans, or at least there's at least one human. What I've heard. So like it makes sense that it wasn't something that was introduced. Like maybe that was in the like formula and like discussions of what the show would be about from that early on, even before 02.
Yeah, I could see it because it does come up a few times in other ones. Like he's not a main antagonist, but he's more like a general. But there's I can't remember his name, but he's the secondary character's brother in Frontier.
Oh yeah, Koichi. Yeah, yeah. He's that's I think like the worst example of in the franchise because it's like he's like one of the most effective, threatening antagonists until they real like show off that he's a human. Then it's like he's just has no personality at that point. And it's like okay, and he had no agency in being evil. It was just
Yeah.
like
Well, that's Frontier's problem in general. Is like, oh, this is a really cool idea, and then the conclusion is just meh.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And to your general comment you made about like if the series wildly diverges, and I hope it wildly diverges. Like I want to see. I haven't finished Final Fantasy VII remake. I just know that there's a wild divergence, and so I'm like, yeah, I want to see the like crazy like the whole structure of the show has been changed kind of things.
Oh yeah, I want to see that too, but I don't want to get my hopes too high,
Yeah,
just in case I get disappointed.
yeah, like yeah, shouldn't get our hopes that like original Taichi shows up with a portal and is like, we gotta, go back in time and save the multiverse, and we're forming the Digimon Avengers. Shouldn't expect something that crazy. So I have a question for Nick because I know Nick's a big Shonen Jump fan, and I happen to be familiar with some Shonen Jump stuff. So I had a question for Nick, which was, if each Adventure Kid was a Shonen Jump manga, which would they be?
Okay. So some of these are easier than others. Let me get Takeru and Hikari out of the way. Takeru is Naruto because he's basic.
Ooh.
Hikari is Black Clover because she's basic and worse. Um,
uh, here are the hot feisty takes I wanted.
oh, you got him.
Pissing off TK fans, or pissing off Hikari fans, or pissing off Black Clover fans, pissing off Naruto. Let's get everyone upset.
Look, I like Naruto, but it's basic. Tai Chi, he would be high Q. He's just got that indomitable energy to him. That high Q just personifies every page. Matt would be Bleach, just because I feel like Matt would love Bleach. He would have Bleach posters and artwork on his walls, and he would be really angry about the last 5 years of the publication. Is Koshiro is Dr. Stone, because Dr. Stone has a real heart to it about the importance and the value of science without being like cold and sterile about it. It really recognizes the humanity of scientific progress and how that's important to people in general. And I think that fits with Koshiro a lot because he's nerdy and he can get too up in his own head, but he is still a caring kid. Sora was difficult, but think I think I'm gonna go with Cross Manage, which is not a very well known title. It's a lacrosse sports manga, but it features multiple characters and storylines about characters trying to achieve something and hurting themselves in the process, and how that other characters try to want to take care of them and help them and protect them, and how that protection can sometimes cause more problems and make the situation worse. And that feels resonant to the way Sora's character was in the original.
Hmm.
Mimi does not read Shonen Jump, so she's a shojo manga, and specifically she's Snow White with the red hair. Because she's sincere and hardworking, but she also would really like to marry a prince and have like handsome men around her all the time. And then Joe, I think, would be Assassination Classroom, because that series is all about different kids sort of learning what is important to them, what they want to do with their life, and how the responsibilities, or not the responsibilities, the authorities above them owe it to them to help them in that process and pursue it rather than putting pressure and expectations on them.
That totally fits the assassination classroom connection. But like my first thought when I hear assassination classroom is like, you know, loud violence and yellow alien. So I'm like, whiplash. But that is what that is what the series is about. Like it is a very heartfelt like series about like the most amazing teacher on the planet that just helps people come into their own.
Yeah, like Joe would not like being in assassination classroom, but he would benefit from it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, those are great answers. So now moving on to our 3-word reviews for this episode. Came in from Twitter. So first off, at Golden Pelt said, "Fish is actually helpful."
At To Lazy Artist says, Joe, chill out.
Andy Lucas TT said, "Seal of approval."
CC Takado says, I love Gomamon.
Empire Will said, "Isekai but studying."
Dot Yawning said, relatable, anxious Joe.
At Mar48 said, "That boy crazy."
At Grim Petition says, Gomamon best boy. And that is correct. Gomamon is best boy.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I basically agree with almost all these. Like, Gomon's best boy, Joe should chill out. He's relatable. Yep.
Yeah, I think Joe really needs to chill out or he's going to get like an Adderall addiction.
Oh boy, yeah, that's going to be the next arc is finding Adderall in the digital world. So yeah, to close out the episode, do you have any final thoughts about the episode that we haven't covered?
I liked it. I enjoyed it well enough. It feels a little bit sharper than the last couple episodes, but you know, we covered everything really.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a nice, like, fun episode that like didn't blow me away by any measure, but like was like I guess I'm hoping if this is the baseline of a like regular episode of Digimon that isn't exceptional, then like that's a good baseline.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, so I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars.
I would do the same. I think the conflict with Joe and Gomamon puts it a little above just baseline average.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's very nice.
All right, so now moving on to hopes and predictions for next episode. So next episode is titled "The Children's Attack on the Fortress," and it seems like Yamato's going to appear. The narrator says all 6 have gathered. Apparently, they're attacking a fortress, judging by the title. I didn't see Koshiro in the clips. Anyway, what kind of thoughts, expectations do you have?
I am interested that they're saying that the 6 have gathered. So it seems like whatever they're going to do with Hikari and Takeru is going to be something different, maybe. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're not part of the chosen 6 or whatever. Other than that, I fully expect Koshiro to come like crashing down mid episode. Because I feel like we've gotten enough out of him being a little pocket Izzy.
Yeah, I liked that little pocket. We didn't get any pocket Izzy this episode. Disappointing. I don't think it's gonna happen based on the fact that the narrator said that all 6 have gathered. But like, I think it'd be funny if they all get there and then Koshiro lands in the digital world and he's back on the original continent and he just is still following them.
or or they find a secret 6th child who or no, Rio's gonna show up.
Oh no. That's the ultimate curse. Yeah, like Rio shows up and Koshiro gets there and he's like, "Wait, did I lose my spot?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, you got booted from the call."
He's already got an ultimate. It's just, it's easier.
Yeah, Rio was actually already defeated the big bad. Like, sorry, he just he was the coolest. Like, he was in this video game that no one played. It wasn't even released in Japan. It was released for. Have you seen the oh god, what's it called? The it's this new handheld console. Do you know what I'm talking about? It has like a little crank.
I have seen that. It looks really cool.
I think it's called Playdate. So yeah, Rio was only ever mentioned in this game for the Playdate system. You turn the crank and he spins, and now he's the Digimon Emperor. He's replacing Queen Mimi too.
Like, oh yeah, he's the king. He's already got a full deck of the new Digimon trading card game, and he's just sliding them through his Digivice. Yep, there he goes. Oh, he beat Apocalypse already. Oh, now he's crushing Myotismon's spine. Wow. Well, everybody, our job is done.
He doesn't even need a Digimon. He just takes the cards and like slices up Pokemon with the cards. Like, what an excellent character.
Yep, I'm glad he's here.
All right, so now there's a segment of the show where we recommend something else that we've been enjoying recently. Nick, do you want to go first?
Sure. So over on Anime News Network, I write for the daily streaming reviews section, where we cover episodes of a show week to week, and because of the COVID delays, we have no shows to cover. So we've been doing classic reviews of older series where we cover them episode by episode. And one of the series I've been getting to do is The 12 Kingdoms. It's this series from, I believe, 2004, based on a light novel series from the 90s. And it's this really engaging sort of light horror isekai series.
Yeah, that's a show that not on my radar at all.
It wasn't on mine either, but it's really engaging. It's got a sort of high fantasy setting, but it's based in a mythologized version of China, and the just the level of characterization to the main character and all of the people around her is really impressive. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm about a third of the way through right now.
Cool. And I'll have a link in the show notes to where people can check out Nick's writing and reviews of those episodes. So I am going to recommend a new mobile gacha game from the Tales franchise, Tales of Cristoria. And it only came out a couple days ago, and I'm still a little bit too, it's still a little bit too new to know if I like enjoy the actual like experience of playing the game on a daily basis. But it's one of the only gacha games that have actually been gripped by the story. I'm not that much of a Tales fan. Like I basically played Tales and Symphonia and have meant to play Tales games ever since, and I've never got around to it. So that kind of like basic anime aesthetic is totally my jam. So I think I would like Tales games, but I just never got around to it. And yeah, the story is basically like I tweeted about this recently, but like it's basically either saying something really interesting about wrongful convictions and police brutality and like police states, or it's
Hmm.
saying something really shitty and really regressive about cancel culture being the ultimate devil, or
Uh,
it's just saying nothing and it's just an excuse to show hot criminals. So like all three of those are interesting.
From my experience with Tales games, I would say the third option is the most likely.
Yeah. But like it's interesting that it's like even making me think about those things, which is more than I expected from a gotcha game story.
Yeah, I'm interested to play that at some point too, because I actually really like the art style for just about all of the Tales games. And so even if the game isn't great, I would be happy to collect lots of pretty pictures of it.
Yeah, and it's still the game. The battle mechanics are interesting. Like there's like interesting mechanics around like building up combos that is not something I've really seen in a turn-based RPG gotcha game before. And there are some aspects of it that are of like the general like raid system that is modeled after Grand Blue Fantasy, which I really like. But kind of worried I think they've taken the worst parts of that system and not improve it on them.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm not sure how I'll feel about it, weeks down the road, but it's exciting for now. And it has like a day one international localization, so that's pretty exceptional and pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that brings us to the end of the show. Starting this week, I'm going to close out the show by asking a question and then reading my favorite answer from last week's question. This week's question is, which character in all of Digimon seasons has the best intro episode? So you can send your responses to that and general feedback for this episode to podages@gmail.com, podages on Twitter, or in the comments section for this episode on podages.com. If you want to support the podcast, it really helps out if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If this is your first episode, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever else you find podcasts. And share the podcast with your friends who care so much that they tear the whole house down. I'm definitely Jeff on Twitter, and you can also check out my general anime podcast, Love It a Wee Bit. Thank you, Nick, for coming on the show. This has been really fun. Really appreciate your perspective.
I'm glad to be on. It was awesome.
So if people want to find you and your writing online, where can they go?
Well, I'm at Lost Thief on Twitter, and pretty much all of my writing right now is being published on Anime News Network. It's under the byline Nicholas Dupree. My most frequent contributions are on the This Week in Anime column on ANN.
So as you mentioned the 12 Kingdom reviews, are there any other things that you're reviewing right now or recent articles that you want to share?
Of the ones we've done recently, I would probably go for the review or our This Week in Anime review of BNA Brand New Animal. It's the new show from Trigger and Little Witch Academia creator Yo Yoshinari, and it is dense, and we spend a lot of time talking about it. But I really enjoyed making it, and it's probably one of my favorite This Week in Animes we've done this year.
Cool. Wait, you wrote the ReZero thing recently, right?
Yes, I also wrote a recent article talking about Subaru, the main character of ReZero, which is just coming back for a second season, and sort of deconstructing what his character arc is and how it compares to the main villain of his arc. I specifically wrote it because I did not want it to be mean towards that character, because it's a character who is not a great person. He is severely flawed, but the show recognizes that, and I find it a really fascinating portrait of a particular personality.
I think when I saw the headline for that, I was like, this seems like a stretch. But then reading, I was like, no, this isn't a stretch at all. Like, it's almost like, how does the show make this so, this connection is like so blatant, but then never actually like literally addressed? It's kind of interesting.
It's an interesting show. ReZero can be frustrating, but I find going back to it pretty rewarding.
All right, so I'll have links to all of those in the show notes. And thanks for listening. I'll be back with another guest next week to talk about episode 8, The Children's Attack on the Fortress. Bye!
Bye!
And remember, never stop digivolving.
虹を見つけたいなら顔を上げなくちゃって差し出された手が僕らをずっと強くする夢を掴みたいなら震えその一歩前に踏み出してごらんよ今ならきっと空を飛べるから
Would you say, and how familiar were you with Sailor Moon Crystal? Would you say it was like above that or below that? Because I feel like at least it didn't like the movement was bad, but the proportions weren't.
Yeah.
There weren't stills that you could take out of context and then be like, what were they doing?
Yeah, it was an issue of animation versus an issue with art design. Because I know some people didn't like the try designs from the Suritama artist, but I actually liked the sort of minimalist style they went with. But they couldn't move anything.
Yeah, it's weird looking back at like the early days of the try discussion about try, like how upset people were about those designs. Because I feel like by now it's like they're totally accepted, and I don't even question them anymore. Like they totally just feel like those characters. I'm still not used to the designs from the recent movie. This still doesn't come out in the States, but it those still feel a little bit too bland.
Yeah, I'm holding off on that until I hear from other people what it's like. Because if it turns out like, oh, you had to see all of Try to understand this, I'm out.
Yeah, I suspect it's not going to be like that. I think what I've heard is that it's kind of like, oh, well, technically Try happened, but like we're not even going to talk about it. I think.
Oh, so it's treating Try the way Try treated Zero too.
Yeah. Basically, I probably need to cut out all of that shitting on Try, or my boyfriend will be mad at me because he gets mad when I shit on it too much. Well, he's like, "Oh, I liked it," and I'm like, "But did you though? I don't think you did that much."
Oh, you're like me with my mom when she says she likes Rise of Skywalker.
Oh. I think I kind of want to defend Rise of Skywalker, but like only on purely like logical grounds, and then it's like, no, there's no reason to, like, even if people's logic in hating on it is a little bit flawed, like there's no reason to defend that movie.
Like you don't need to die on this
yeah,
hill.
it's not worth defending. It's not worth putting the effort into.
But if you do care about people, you get some cool wings.
Yeah. And a gun. I forget if he had the gun before that.
He had the gun before. I think he got a better gun.
Oh yeah, because the little water gun turned into the better gun.
Mhm.
He also got his Corona Blaster attack, so we're all in this because of him.
No, he's gonna save us from it. He's the Buster.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, he's getting rid of the Corona. Okay.
He's the one like really bad part of that show.
Well, my frustration with the way people talk about Rio is that like it kind of factors into the like dub versus sub mentality a lot of people have, which is like if people who watch the dub complain about Rio, then they're like, oh no, like if you were a Japanese audience, you totally would have understood Rio. Like if you were a Japanese fan, like it would have totally made sense. And I'm just like, knowing how like the realities of media work, like the anime had a wider base than the video games. Like
it's more than that. It's bad storytelling.
Yeah,
Like, oh yeah, who's this character who has no development but gets all of these cool superpowers? Oh, he's helping in the final battle for no reason. Okay, cool.
Like I think that could work if it happened to have this scenario where like everyone had known that character, which is what people claim. They're like, oh, in Japan everyone knows this character, but they didn't. Like the anime was more popular than the Wonderswan games. Like so. They might have like vaguely known who this character was, but it was just a poorly executed ad for the games. So
yeah, it's not good. You can just accept that it's not good. It's okay.